this was probably the worst home that I was in out of all the homes I had been to, by far. I'm lucky I didn't go through no sexual abuse or nothing like that. But when it came to mental and physical abuse, man, these guys let me have it, man. They had two biological daughters, and they spent a lot of time. Um, they spent a lot of time showing them that I was some kind of sick example of what a kid's not supposed to be like. All right, you guys, this episode 51 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm going to get straight back to it. So check it out, you guys. Like I do between every episode of Inner Demons, I always listen to the last episode to kind of help get me back to where I last left off. This way, I'm not repeating myself. Now, I listened to episode 50. There's a lot of different moving parts going on at this time, so let me try to get back in where I left off. Now, I told you guys I got a directive from leadership to move out to San Jose for the purpose of reestablishing the regiment. This was a regiment that at one time was already established. It was up and running. However, when Operation Black Widow kicked off, leadership for the regiment got indicted. So everybody that was functioning, they all dispersed. They crawled up under a rock, everybody disappeared, and they basically stopped functioning. So my purpose was to go out there and find everybody, find all the stragglers, get everybody plugged back in and get the regiment back up and running so that it was generating money. Now, I was able to do that, but I'm taking you guys through the process, the step-by-step process. It took about 6 months. So in the beginning, where I'm at right now, basically, I was able to find everybody that was functioning. I told you guys I ran into Gato out there. Through the assistance of a couple individuals out there, I was basically able to find everybody that was a part of that regiment, as well as about 5 or 6 other individuals that were willing to work with the regiment as well. So I brought in some new people that I recruited out there on the streets. Anyway, so in the very beginning, I didn't really have anything to help as far as financial. The financial means of it was something that was missing. I had to use a lot of my own resources in order to get myself up and going. In the beginning, I ran into a connection out there, and he was good for a couple pounds, and then he got busted. He disappeared. Then I had the counterfeiting operation going on, and that fizzled out because things got hot, things got weird, and it was just something that I didn't want to mess with no more. So I got rid of all the equipment and let that go. Now, all the manpower knew that I was looking for a connection. I was looking for a financial plug in order, somebody that was willing to work with us in order for us to start generating some real money. So everybody was out there scouting on the streets, looking for a good connection, somebody that was willing to work with us. Now, Pony had taken me to a couple of individuals out there that had previously worked with some of the other C's that were out there, Chico, Bad Boy, Goose. And, one individual in particular was Felipe. He's an individual that a northerner that was out there that at one point was assisting the regiment. He was dealing a lot of weight out there, and he was willing to assist. However, he got burned, whether it was Bad Boy or Huicho. Huicho was another C that was, I believe, had dealings with Flip. Whatever the case was, or whoever it was, Flip did not want to get involved with NF activity out there. He was kind of like, he was dragging his feet. He had conditions, and there was things that he wanted to do, or that he wasn't saying no, completely no, that he didn't want to assist us, but it was just, I got frustrated. I ended up walking out of the meeting that we had with them. So those individuals, we would end up working with them later over the course of time, but at that point, they ended up being, basically, they ended up, nothing became of them. So, like I said, all the manpower knew that I was looking for a connection out there. Now, one of the individuals, one of my regiment members that does not want to be mentioned by name, and I respect that. He doesn't want to be mentioned on YouTube. He's living a happy life, a happy, quiet life, and that's the way he wants to keep it. And that's cool. But this individual, he one day he came at me and he's like, "Hey, B," he's like, "I got this individual." He's like, "I think he'd be a good fit for the regiment, and I want to present him." And he was presented in the form of a resource, because, like I said, he knew as well as everybody else knew that I was looking for a connection, somebody that was willing to work with us. We needed to start generating some money. Leadership basically would give me about 5 or 6 months to build the regiment, and at that point they would expect money to start flowing in. So this individual, I believe I talked about him in episode 50. We called him Bling Bling. He brought him by my house one time, and he told me prior to bringing him, like, hey B, this is a guy that's always talking about the NF. He's always talking about C's. I think this guy would be more than willing to work with us, and we can use him. He's a little baller. So I was more than willing to meet this guy. He brought him to the house. The first night I met him, he came by in a Lincoln with some 22s or some 26s, whatever. He had some big ass rims. And, he had this big white bomber on with fur around the collar. He was all blinged out. That's why we called him Bling Bling. And, the dude was a cool dude. He was cool. And his mindset at that time was he wanted to work with us. He had some resources that he was willing to share with us. And he knew that I had the manpower. So together, we could combine resources and we could do the damn thing. So that's what we started to do. But this guy's mistake was he started talking about his connection. So that's really what I was after. I was after the connection. That was the individual that I was really trying to slide up under. But in the meantime, I had to slide up under Bling Bling because he was the conduit to the connection. He was the link. So that's what I did. I told you guys, me and Bling Bling, from the day I met him, we were pretty much joined at the hip. I took this guy up under my wing, and I basically kicked it with him for about 2 months. And all the regiment members knew what I was doing. They knew, like, man, B's really trying to get in good graces with this dude so that, he can utilize him for a resource. It was obvious to everybody except Bling Bling, probably. Anyways, and if he did know, he didn't mind, or he was just happy to work with us. So, I told you guys how we would do things like go to the Malibu Grand Prix or that in-house racetrack out there in Milpitas. That's what he liked to do. And as far as I was concerned, it's not my thing, but if that's what he wanted to do, then I was more than willing to do it with him. So, like I said, a couple of times I went over there with him. I put on the tight-ass jumpsuit that they make you wear and the Martian helmet, and we went out there and we raced cars. Now, there was one time that I didn't mention this to you guys, but, this guy really liked to go to that place. So, I believe we had went there on like 4 or 5 different occasions. But one time, I had told a couple other regiment members, man, you guys come with us, man. I wanted them to come feel my pain or come see what I was doing with these guys. So I remember about 5 or 6 of them came with us, and we all met over there in Milpitas, and everybody signed up, and we all got on the racetrack. And I remember, those little cars, they fly. If you don't know how to drive and you hit one of those turns, and I believe they go up to like 40, 50 miles an hour, you can hurt yourself. But I remember, everybody, it's like the whole regiment or half the regiment. I'm over exaggerating, but it was probably like 5 or 6 of us that were out there on the track, and we're out there just having fun driving on the racetrack. And I remember at one point, I want to say it was Baby G, Eric Zarate, that came up behind me on purpose, slammed into me. They wanted to start playing bumper cars. And I remember I got so mad. I was like the grumpy old man at that time. You know what I mean? He came and slammed into me, and I remember I almost disciplined him. I probably was gonna fine him or something. I mean, I'm half joking, but I lightweight got mad because the fool damn near gave me whiplash. Anyways, so for the next two months, me and Bling Bling would be kicking it out there, and there was all kinds of things like that he wanted to do. And like I said, I didn't mind. Whatever made him happy, I was more than willing to do because I had a purpose. Now, in the beginning, when he would bring me around the connection, he would never let me go inside to meet the dude. I would always wait outside. There'd be times when we go over there and we pick up 5 or 6 pounds. And he tell me, hey, this guy, he's like real selective about, you know, meeting people right now. And I've been telling them about you, talking you up, and eventually I'm going to introduce you to them. But right now, you know, it's best that I just go in there and just deal with them myself, which was cool. You know what I mean? I knew it was a process and I was willing to take my time in order to meet this dude. So, you know, over time, you know, he started to let me get closer and closer. That was the individual that I was really trying to slide up under. But anyway, so, you know, I'm working with Bling Bling and we start making money. We start making money. He's giving us pounds at a discounted price. At that time, I want to say pounds were going for 9,000. I don't remember what he was giving them to us for. I want to say it was somewhere like 5 or 6, but there were some cool prices. Anyway, so we're generating money and we're working, and you know, everything is finally starting to come together as far as the regiment. Now, I told you guys that at one point, Bling Bling, he had good business acumen. He always had his mind, you know, working as far as trying to get into something, you know, some kind of business that we could establish. He floated some ideas, like, you know, he had an idea about opening up a rim shop. And, you know, he was like, yeah, I can get rims at wholesale prices. We can open up a rim shop, call it California Wheels or something. Dude he had good vision. That's one of the things that I liked about the dude, and I'll give him credit for it. So, you know, he started floating these ideas and he was willing to fund the money to make it happen, or at least half of the money. But he was telling me that his connection was willing to put up the rest of the money. So I was like, for me, it was a win-win. You know, he's wanting to open up these businesses and make himself the president, which was cool, and make me the vice president. I was more than happy with that, because for one, I'm not putting in no money. For two, you know, I'm getting my foot in the door for something that could benefit the NF. And at that time, that's all I was thinking about. So, you know, Bling Bling had an individual that he referred to as his cousin that he ended up introducing me to. His name was Caesar. I want to say, well, his last name doesn't matter. I want to say it's Ramirez. But either way, he introduced me to Caesar, and Caesar was somebody that, you know, like I said, he called him his cousin. He said that this guy had a limousine business and that he had got to a point where he had a small shop, but he was getting to a point where he was going to go halves with another guy. He was going to you know, co-own a business that they had a fleet. There was like 50 or 60 limos, and they had all different kind of limos. So this guy was willing to give us a starter package. It's like, you know what, you got a shop, I'll give you a limo. Maybe you guys can buy 2 or 3 more and you guys can start. So basically all we had to do is just sign our names over on everything. The lease, we had a shop over there off of Gish in San Jose. We needed to get that situated, the electricity, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, me and this guy, we even went to IKEA. And everything was an experience with this guy. We went to IKEA and we went over there for the purpose of selecting furniture for the shop. Desks, business desk, lamps, shades, carpets, everything. The shop was actually a nice shop. It was kind of big for you know, I was surprised it was how big it was, but it was like in an industrial area off of Gish out there in San Jose. And it was like, I forget what they're called, man, but they're like, it's an industrial area, just put it like that. But there's an office, and then you got a garage for the limousines. And then there was like a loft up on the top that it was a little area where you can kick it. They had it all hooked up where it was kind of cool. Everybody used to go up there and smoke weed. So anyway, we get the shop up and running, and we get the furniture put up in there, and he's the president and I'm the vice president, and we got our plaques on the desk. And you know, I remember one time we were still dabbling a little bit, and it was more his thing at that time in counterfeiting as well, because like I told you guys, I had pretty much backed away from it. It leaves a paper trail. Things got hot. I had a couple situations where there were close calls, so I was done with it. But I remember, because later on when we would all get cracked, they would find counterfeit prints on his business computer that would end up becoming part of our case. At least they had it in discovery, those bills. So anyways, aside from that, I'm continuing to build the regiment. I'm still looking for other individuals to bring in for more manpower. At that point, I believe I had like 20 guys that were functioning. And this consisted of guys that were already a part of the regiment, as well as some of the new ones that I recruited. Now, one of the other things that I'm going to tell you guys about it is this. So Turtle was one of my regiment members. Turtle, his cousin Baby G, the youngster that I don't want to mention by name or that doesn't want to be mentioned by name, and a couple other cats that are from San Jose and have a good history out there where, had some influence on the streets. These guys obviously knew a lot of individuals from San Jose, being from San Jose, and they knew their history and they came up with them. Well, there was an individual in particular named Conejo, Jesse Rodriguez, that was from Palmas. And, his name started coming up. I told you guys that I stayed in touch with Charlie Campa from time to time because he was a regimental commander for another regiment out there in South County. Now, we didn't work together because at that time it was a no-no for regiments to commingle or to even, network. And I told you guys the reason for that is because in the event, somebody gets sloppy and there's an investigation and they get law enforcement on their tracks, then that bleeds over to the other regiment and we all get taken down. So, I would stay in touch with Charlie for communication purposes and for business reasons. Now, Conejo was an individual that was plugged into Charlie's regiment at that time. And Charlie had basically washed his hands of this individual because he was in debt. I know he had messed off a lot of weight. There was a lot of weight that, was unaccounted for. And, it had been given to him on consignment. And Charlie was to the point of, what, man, this dude's done. I don't remember why we communicated at that time. That might even have been the reason why. Charlie telling me that this guy was done and that, he was no good. However, the individuals I mentioned to you guys a few minutes ago, Turtle, I want to say it was Turtle, Baby G, his cousin Baby G, and a couple other guys, they knew Conejo. And these guys had basically put it in my ear that, hey, this he's a good dude. He's somebody that's a hustler on the streets. He just needs to be around somebody that will ride his ass in. He'll work. He'll make money. He's somebody that can make money. He's a hustler out there on the streets. So basically what they were trying to do is they were trying to get me to save him. So, a couple of them had asked me specifically, like, B, come on, man, he's a good dude. Save the dude, man. Don't let him go out like that. If it's just some dope, maybe you can give him a chance to get it back or whatnot. Now, I didn't want to step on Charlie's toes. I didn't want to get in his business or, do anything that might offend him. That's not how you do it out there. There's certain lines that you don't cross as regimental commanders, and there's just certain things that are to be respected. So it was a situation that I really didn't want to touch, but, I did it because some of the guys, like I said, that, were working with me really wanted to save this guy. So what I did is I came up with the plan. I told Charlie, you know what, how much money does this individual owe you? And I forget what it was, but, I told Charlie basically if I get you the money, if I pay whatever he's in debt for, I want to bring him over to my regiment, let him go, and I'll take him and, we'll call it a day. So that's basically what ended up happening. At the end of the day, I forget the details. Honestly, I forget if I even paid Charlie. I don't remember how it happened. I might have, but whatever the case was, it was talked about and, he was okay with it and I was okay with it. So I brought Conejo into the regiment, and obviously, the first day that I brought him over to my house, I told Pony, hey, this dude we need to sit him down and we need to get an understanding with him, because he's not going to come over here and start giving the same problems to me that he was giving to Charlie. And I'm going to make that clear to him, bro. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to have the latitude, you know, to get more dope fronted to him, and he's not going to have a chance, because the chances that he already burned up with Charlie. You know, he's already somebody that really should have been deemed. I don't know what the issue is, how come he didn't pay him back, but we're going to find out. And I want to make sure that he understands that he can't come over here and do that. So that's what we did. I remember the first day Pony had picked up Conejo and brought him by my pad at that time. And we sat him down and bent his ear, you know, and basically told him, look, I'm saving you. I'm bringing you over here. You were pretty much a done data. You were done, bro. You know, but I'm willing to work with you. You know, I've always been the type of C that was always willing to try to help homies. If I could, if it was if they were still salvageable to a point, you know, they didn't do something that was beyond, you know, coming back, I would always try to, you know, stick my neck out there and help somebody, because my policy or my philosophy was always do to others as you would, you know, expect others to do to you. You know, I would want somebody to give me the benefit of the doubt, or I would want somebody to, you know, to stick their neck out and to try to help me instead of just writing me off. So that's something that I've always tried to live up to. So Conejo wasn't a lone ranger as far as that either. There was a couple of individuals that I did that too, but I'm not going to mention them because it's personal, and, you know, there's just reasons why I'm not going to mention it. I'm just going to leave it at that. But those that function with me, those that were out there with me, those that were part of the regiment, they know who they are. They know who I'm talking about. And, you know, it's not a bad thing. For the most part, these guys ended up doing everything that they were expected to do. They didn't bring none of that craziness over to my regiment. You know, it was just a matter of staying on top of them and making sure that they understood that there was serious consequences if they started pulling that type of shit. Anyway, so aside from that, you know, slowly, gradually getting closer and closer to this connection. Now, Bling Bling's got my nose wide open because that's all he does is talk about this dude. They call him Don Julio. But all he's doing is talking about this dude, talking about the weight that he has, talking about, you know, how generous the dude is, how willing he is to put up money to fund some of the ideas that he had as far as the limousine business, as far as the rim shop, or other ideas that he kicked around. So, you know, at that point, I was like, I got to meet this dude, and I gotta slide up under him. I need that. I need this. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't rush it, though. I didn't rush it. I continued to just let Bling Bling do his thing, and I gave him a lot of rope, man. I let him feel like he was part of the regiment. And at one point, I'm even going to tell you guys, like, it's a crazy story, but I'm going to even tell you is, you know, I let him go as far as almost feeling like he was part of leadership for the regiment. It's a crazy story, but that's for another episode. But anyway, so, you know, aside from that right there, I'm also working with Pony. I'm grooming him up to, you know, I did appoint him to be my second in command, but I'm still grooming him up as far as what those responsibilities consist of, because he had never functioned in a regiment before. And giving somebody a position like that, a second in command position, is a pretty big undertaking. So, you know, a lot of the times Pony would be one of the only ones that would come by my pad, and a lot of that time that was spent would be indoctrinating him as far as, you know, my expectations, what I expected him to do out there on the streets, because I ran a real tight ship out there. Nobody can say that I didn't. I didn't let these dudes run wild, even though a lot of them later on I would find out were using dope and were doing things that they shouldn't have been doing. They did it. They were slick about it, and they didn't just run amok. Trust me. You know, I ran a tight ship out there. So I had policies. I'll just give you guys an example of some of the policies. So Pony was required to check in with these guys, or these guys were required to check in with Pony twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. Pony was my second in command. He was my buffer. Basically, he was the one that would go out there and deal with leadership, not leadership, deal with manpower on the streets. He was the one that would go out there and collect the money, or give them guys the dope, the regiment dope, or whatever needed to be done. He was the one that would basically be going out there and knocking on doors and sitting down with the manpower. Every now and then, I would go by some of my regimental members' houses, and I kick it with them. I always wanted to have a good relationship with all my guys, and I always did that. I knew every one of them. I had a relationship with every one of them, and that's something that I always did. I didn't just kick back at my pad like I was just a C that was too good to meet you, or a C that was full of himself and just thought I was just above everybody. And I wasn't that type of dude, man. Anyway, so Pony had a couple of resources of his own that he would end up bringing to the regiment, or he'd end up introducing me to a couple guys that were beneficial to the regiment. One in particular was somebody that he claimed was his uncle, and it was through marriage. I want to say his wife, Sarah, had an uncle named John Santa Ana that lived out there on the east side. And this guy was a cool cat, man. This dude was just an older dude that, he was married, had a wife, his kids had grown up, and, he wasn't no gangbanger or nothing like that. He didn't run the streets. He was just an older guy that stayed home, took care of his wife, but he was willing to assist us, the regiment, in whatever ways we needed. If we needed to keep product over there, we needed to keep guns over there, he would allow us to, to do it at his house. He was giving us that option. So, when Pony first introduced me to him, he embraced me from the gate. He obviously he knew that I was NF, and John Santa Ana, he's somebody that's been around. Like I said, he's an older guy who's in his 50s. He's somebody that, has lived on the east side of San Jose all his life. He's seen a lot of C's come and go throughout the years, so he knew what time it was. He wasn't no rider, but he wasn't no square either. So, he was more than knowledgeable as far as what was going on, what we were trying to do, and what I was personally trying to accomplish out there in San Jose. So, he basically let it be known that his doors were open to us, and that however, we needed him to assist us, he was more than willing to do it. He was a machinist as well. I remember that cat used to make guns out of pins like this. He would make a 22. It was just one bullet, and it was in the form of a pin. I don't know if you guys have ever seen them like that, but all it was like a pin like this. It was obviously all steel though. You unscrewed it in the middle, you put the bullet inside, there was a pin, this connected to the pin, this part of it, you pulled it back and you let it go, and the pin would hit the bullet, and the bullet would would shoot. So I remember, he used to make those, and he gave us all those little guns, those 22s. They were kind of cool, man. So, he introduced me to John Santa Ana. That was one individual that would later become a part of the case, and I'll tell you guys how all that happened later. But he was somebody that we would continue to work with over time. A lot of times it was just a matter of going over there, dropping some guns off, keeping them in his garage, and that's all it was. So, there was another individual that Pony had introduced me to by the name of Roger Carranza. And it was a fluke that I met Roger, because, at one time I was looking for a good tattoo artist, and Roger, that just so happened to be his forte. That's what he did out there in San Jose. He was known for tattooing out there. He was from, I want to say he's from Gilroy, from 500 block. He's somebody that claimed to be one of the founders. I don't believe that, but he claimed that he was from 500 and he was a cool dude. As far as, when I first met him, it's not personal, Roger, if you're watching this, because, I know you keep up on what's going on out there on the streets, and I know you're back out there in San Jose. If you're watching, it ain't nothing personal, and I'm not mad. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, when I met Roger, like I said, he was another cool dude, older guy, about John's age, in his 50s. And I seen his work, and right away I was like, oh man, this is a blessing right here to run into a dude like this that has those type of skills. That's all he would do though, is he'd use his garage, and homeboys would go over there, they come through the side door, and he tattoo. That was his tattoo shop, the garage, and he did good work. So, I met Roger, and over time, he would end up, unfortunately, he would end up also getting pulled into the case because of some other things that were going on that, he did himself. Now, through Roger, I also got in contact with another individual from Gilroy that would also, later on, let me just say this. I'll let you guys figure it out for yourself, or you guys can weigh in on it. But, some things happened that were very suspicious. I never got anything. I never seen anything on paper. It was never nothing but speculation. But when you look at the totality of everything, right now, I know you guys are like, what the hell is he talking about? You'll understand, trust me. But, there's an individual named Latigo from Gilroy. And Latigo, I was always tight with Latigo. I met Latigo in San Quentin back in the early 90s. And, he was somebody that was, from the day I met him, I liked the dude. We clicked, and, he was at Hermano at that time, and he was just a good dude. There was a couple times we had made plans over the years to hook up. This is way back when I was living in San Francisco. We were going to hook up. There was another time he was going to build me an Indian motorcycle because he worked at one of the Indian motorcycle companies. And, we stayed in touch over the years. And, me going in and out of San Quentin so many times over the years, I would always run into him. So I always had, a level of respect and love for the dude every time I seen him, So at one point, after I met Roger, Latigo's name obviously came up, because anytime I ever met anybody from Gilroy, that was one of the first individuals I would throw out there. Hey, Latigo. So Latigo just so happened to be, or at least according to Roger, they used to be they were cousins. So I don't know. They might just be playing that cousin game just because they thought they were just really cool. So I don't know. But he puts me in touch with Latigo, and Latigo was somebody that didn't want to work in the regiment because he was straight up. He told me he was using, and he just didn't want to set himself up for failure. But at one point, later on down the line, I would start working with Latigo. But he was somebody else that I came into contact with. And I'm just telling you guys this so later on in the story, you guys will kind of understand why these names are coming up. And you'll just, once you have knowledge of it and all the pieces get put together, then you'll figure certain things out yourself. So anyway, aside from, meeting Latigo and Roger Carranza out there, I will continue to work with Bling Bling on the not on the rim shop, but on the limousine business. We put the business together. At one point in the beginning, we only had one limousine. It was a 12-seater. I want to say it was a Lincoln, definitely a Lincoln 12-seater. It had the fog lamps, it had the mood lights, the overhead system. It was a banger. It was nice. It was a nice limo. And like I told you guys, that limo, once we bought that business from Caesar, once we bought it from him, I pretty much took the limo over. In the matter of fact, in the very beginning, when we actually put some packages together, as far as like a birthday package or a wedding package, because we drafted all that stuff up in the very beginning, and looked at some of the other limousine companies that were out there running in San Jose, and got a good feel of the prices, the regular prices that were being set out there. So we came in hard, cutthroat in the game. You know, if they were offering a marriage package for 160, we were charging like 130. So we put these packages together, and we pretty much got the limousine company running somewhat. There was still a lot of work that we needed to do, especially a lot of the stuff to make us legal. Liability was something that we were wide open for. We didn't have insurance or none of that stuff yet. But in the beginning, and this is part of the reason why I was driving the limousine until we were able to figure all that stuff out. Till we, figured out the insurance and the liability issues and all that stuff. I was the driver. I basically elected to drive. Can you imagine, your grandmother and grandfather out there calling the limousine company and wanting to go like from a church to a club or to a nice restaurant or something, and I'm up there in the front driving. They see me. Honestly, whenever I did drive somebody like that, because there was some times where I really did pick up a bunch of old people, I would keep that visor up the whole time, and it was a black visor. So if unless that visor came down or unless they came up to the front of the limo, they would never see me. I would pull up, they would get in, they would do their thing back there, and they would never see me. But in the very beginning, I was driving the limousine until we actually hired some drivers and had other people driving. I was doing all the driving in the beginning. So, over time, I told you guys, we put all the furniture in there. We had the business going. And, one of my main things was trying to, run the dirty money that we were getting from the dope through the business, washing the books, basically not counterfeiting, but money laundering. So that was something that we started doing. I was personally doing the books, washing the books and showing Jose how to do that. So, over time, eventually he started to let me get closer to Julio. And at one point, he took me to a place over there. I want to say it's called Poco Way. That's where Julio had an apartment. There was nothing in the apartment. It was just an empty apartment. And I want to say he did like he would later do, kept the dope in a closet or kept it in an empty room somewhere in a duffel bag or something. But I went over there. There was a couch in the front. At this one point, when we were driving over there, Bling Bling said, hey, homeboy said he wants to meet you. It's good that I bring you in. However, when we pull up and we go in, it wasn't Julio that I ended up meeting. It was his brother. He had a brother. And for whatever reason, Julio had to take off or whatever, but at least I had my foot in the door. So, I felt like I was finally starting to get closer to something that was really going to benefit the regiment. And, with all due respect to Jose or Bling Bling, I wasn't going to completely cut him out, and I didn't. But, my whole purpose for bringing him in was to get my hands on that connection, not to rob him or do nothing like that, but to do what we did, to network with them, to utilize them as a resource, to start generating money. That's what I was out there to do. That's what I do, or that's what I did at that time, and that was the last piece that I needed. So, I want to say it wasn't long after that eventually I ended up meeting Julio. And it wasn't at his apartment. Something happened over there off Poco Way where he had to move from that apartment and move all his dope to another apartment. So at that time, I ended up meeting him. He actually pulled up by the limousine business that we were running. And, he walked up and Jose introduced me to him, and we started chopping it up. And I thought he was a paisa that didn't speak English and, a cat like that. But he actually ended up being a cool cat. He came up and he's like, hey, check it out, man. The homie was like, Jose, he talks highly about you. And, I've been wanting to meet you, but, there's just so much stuff going on out here that, I'm just leery to meet anybody. When I'm like, hey, it's completely understandable. We're in the same business, man. I'm the same way as you, except, I'm out here doing my thing. There's a lot of people that I mess with, but at the same time, I don't know who to trust out here either. So I keep my circle tight as well. So right away, the dude liked me. you know, in his mind, I can tell when we were talking, his mind had already started working. He's got the product, I got the manpower. Together, we could do this because I was already throwing stuff out there to him. Like, look, man, you know, I'm tied into Frisco. I'm tied into, you know, Salinas, Watsonville, Santa Rosa. All I need is a good connection, somebody that can supply the type of demand that we're looking for. And sky's the limit. I got a lot of people that are willing to move it, and you know, that's what I've been looking for. So, you know, I could tell it piqued his interest, and you know, he started to consider that over the next couple weeks. And eventually, you know, I don't want to get too far up in the story, but so coincidentally, I had just rented the apartment right next door to the apartment where I was living in Campbell. I rented it for the purpose, really it was for the purpose of letting one of my regiment members stay there because he was running from parole and his girl was pregnant, and I wanted this dude to stay out. I embraced him like he was almost like he was my kid, man. I took a liking to this dude, you know, I took him up under the wing, and you know, I wasn't there for the birth of my daughter, and I know how that feels. You know, it's something that I've had to live with for years, and it's something that I've always regretted, making those mistakes, never being there for her birth. And I didn't want that to happen to him. So I rented that room or that apartment, and I told him, bro, just kick back. You know what I mean? I'll get you groceries. I'll pay your electricity. All I want you to do is just kick back. Quit running the streets. Just, you know, put it in slow motion and chill with your girl right now until the birth of your baby. Then when you have your baby, bro, turn yourself in, do whatever you're gonna do, and then come back out and get yourself back together, bro. You know, because aside from missing the birth of his daughter, it's kind of messed up. For those of you that have been on parole and you know you're running, it's not fun to be running, you know, from law enforcement or from parole. It can be a stressful thing, trust me. I did it myself, and you know, you not wanting to go to certain places because they know about it, and then you got family that don't want you over there because they know you're hot and they don't want the door kicked in, and you know you're staying in different places that it can get crazy, man. So, you know, I didn't want the homie to go through all that. And basically, I gave him an opportunity to just kick his feet up, kick back, not really do nothing for the next couple months until his girl had the baby, and then after that, you know, like I said, he'd have to turn himself in or do something. Anyways, I think that this is a good spot right here to stop. You know, there's a lot of other different things that are going on. I want to make sure that you guys get the full extent of everything. I don't want to miss nothing because there's a lot going on. We're doing the limousine business right now. There's other things that are going to be going on with Salinas, the Salinas regiment. There's, you know, the financial part of it. I'm just now starting to hook in with Julio, the connection. And by the way, later on, I would find out that he was part of the Gulf Cartel. So that just gives you an idea of how much dope this dude had or how much he had access to. And there's something else that happened later on I'll tell you guys about, where it will give you a better opportunity to see how much dope he really had access to. Anyways, this episode 51 of Inner Demons. I know it's been a minute, man. I had a family member pass away this last week. I just flew back in from Washington yesterday. That's why nothing has been put out. My sleeves are rolled up. I'm back in the, what do they call it? The laboratory, the laboratory, or whatever it is. You guys know what I'm talking about. But my sleeves are rolled back up. I'm ready to get back to work, man. So we should start generating some content within the next couple of days. Sandman, he's still having issues over there as far as those damn stones, man. That's one of the unluckiest youngsters that I know. That boy got medical issues. But anyways, it's all good. He's ready to get back to doing what he does. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This your boy B, and I'm out.